We had commenced the planning for the scope really around separated systems for all the client groups, which is a solid way to start planning. And then what we like to see is a synergy across services and then look at where we could combine client groups if possible. However, the other challenge we always have with an Olympic Winter Games is the amount of space we have in and around venues, particularly in the mountain area. We have that challenge as well in summer, but in winter, of course, with that environment. However, the POCOG venue transport team was set up quite late. So even when we were having discussions with them, they were presenting plans that showed separated systems, and they were showing all the different client groups going into the venue as if they were standalone venues with enough space to operate and to manage that type of service. So in the last 6 to 9 months, we were trying to encourage venue transport and services to really try and combine and try and lighten the load in terms of space requirements, because we didn't feel that it could work in the way that it had been planned. But because it had been planned as venue transport are doing this, and by that time you have services, but you also then have bus and fleet teams. So they'd already defined their scope, and that's what they wanted to deliver. And it was very hard to get them back to, you don't want to say the drawing board, but to try and find those integrated synergies. So we had some complexities in that, and some decisions were made very late. In particular, they had to convince security to operate a clean-to-clean combined service in the base of Alpenzia into 3 of the competition venues, because that was the best efficient way to operate. But security, according to their parameters, said that they were asking them to run a service where they had protected persons. But what we were asking for is a service that didn't require screening at the perimeter, but had screening prior to the perimeter. In Beijing, they're calling that far-end screening, far-end checks, and that's a much better way to think about it. So we had a lot of challenges in the last 6 to 9 months. We, according to us, in terms of the advisor team that were there, we didn't feel that they had a plan for the mountain. They had a lot of different operations they were planning, but when you put it together, it didn't have a synergy in how that was going to work. So the service team were really struggling because they felt that they were agitating continually the other teams to change the plan. But when they finally came through and developed the plan, it was very solid, and it actually worked very well. The issue they had was communicating at the signage, what they called these services, how they did them. So I guess a learning for us from that side is that, we want to change the paradigm of thinking from the beginning. And while we understand the stakeholders, particularly in a winter, we want to ask the question, who can't share a service instead of who can? So that has now reflected a change in the Olympic Games guide that's about to be republished, and it's hopefully reflecting a change in the approach we're having in Beijing, instead of already fixing services according to separation. What can be combined? Where are the synergies, particularly in winter, where everyone's accommodation is so integrated with the venues? So there was a big change. It was considered to be a big change in scope, but technically it wasn't. It was developing a plan that wasn't there. The other area that had significant issues and change requirements was the workforce transport in Pyeongchang, and that consumed a lot of angst and resources, management resources and focus, and it also required additional vehicles. So while the